I'm Deacon John, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Daniel 11:33. Today, we are discussing a headline in the news that can lead to the next world war and the building of the Jewish temple. Let's talk about it. Jerusalem Post, dated 14 April of 22. And it reads, Israel warns Assad and Syria that their palaces will be bombed if Iran operations continue. Now, Israel is threatening to bomb Syria for assisting Iran. And if you don't know, Iran they're enriching uranium. And Israel understands how devastating that can be if Iran is successful in this enrichment of uranium. They're saying that it's for energy, but the world knows that it is for nuclear warheads. That's why there have been sanctions against Iran. And the headline reads Assad and Syria. So Syria, of course, is a country in the Middle East. Assad is their president. He is Bashar al-Assad. He is their president. Israel will not, I repeat, Israel will not go through another Holocaust. That's why this is important. They will not go through another Holocaust. The Bible tells us that there will be another war. It is called in the Bible, or known as, the Sixth Trumpet War, and it is found in Revelation 9. Let's look at it. Revelation 9, verses 13 and 16. And it reads, The sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel, who had the trumpet, Release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and the day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. So now look, there's a war that's coming. This war is going to kill a third of mankind. This war will have an army of 200 million. That's a lot of people. We know the United States can't fill that many, but China can. The country of India, they can. And Islam, they can too. This is in the Middle East. This is going to be a Muslim Islamic war. If it starts there, because it is 100% along the Euphrates River, it is 100% Islamic. The Bible has forewarned us about a whole lot of things, and we don't believe any of it, at least most of us. There are a lot of people that won't even tune in here because it's just a bunch of babble. But if we continue to follow the news and continue to follow the scriptures, we will see everything unfolding just like God said that it would. So now the question I want to look at, though, is I want to look at the opinion at the bottom of the headline that I was referring to today. Let's look at the bottom. And it says, what is Hamas's greatest fear? That Israel will start to build the temple. So now the question becomes, what are they talking about? They're talking about Israel wanting to build a temple. Israel wants to build a temple. They are ready. They are prepared to build this temple. The only thing that is preventing them from building this temple, there are two things that I am aware of. That is permission and the red heifer. They have to have a red heifer, and they have to have permission. Israel has all the furniture. They have reassembled everything that they need for the temple so that they can build the temple on the Temple Mount. Now, the fact that the question is, what is Hamas's greatest fear? That Israel will start to build the temple. That lets us know that the Muslims are very, very, very much aware that the Jews want to build another temple. And they will build this temple. And how do we know that? This is a Bible study because the Bible tells us. Let's turn our Bibles to Revelation chapter 11 and look at verses 1 and 2. And they read, "Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months." Now, John has specific instructions on how to build this temple, the measurements, where to measure, how to measure. The Gentiles will be given a part of this temple in the outer courts. The Gentiles in the outer courts. So what that means is when they build this temple, it is going to have to be conditional. And we know that there is a peace agreement that is going to be established. And that's what's going to allow them to build this temple. Now, I believe, Deacon John, because the Bible does not have a foundation for this. The Bible doesn't support this. It's coming from me. I believe that the war happens first. So the war happens first or the war happens after the peace agreement. But it just makes more sense that the war happens first. Because then the international community, the world, will demand peace like they did after World War II. After World War II, they demanded peace and the Berlin Wall went up. They severed the head of Germany so that Germany could no longer cause war throughout the world. The same thing may happen again here. There's going to be a war. Remember, Revelation 9 tells us that the war is going to be so devastating. It will be a third of mankind that will be killed. A third of mankind will be killed. We know that it's going to be nuclear because there are so many countries that have nuclear ballistic missiles. And it's going to start in the Euphrates. We don't know who the players are going to be. But we do know that there's going to be a war. There's going to be a war. The peace agreement is going to have to then be demanded, and it's going to be set in place for a 7-year agreement. When Bill Clinton was president, Bill Clinton, he said, why don't we just share? He made a statement to just share because Israel's going to have to trade land for peace, and then they're going to have to share the Temple Mount. And that is the biggest thing, the Temple Mount. Who gets control of the Temple Mount? So they're going to share it. And right here, God has already told us. He says, but leave out the court which is outside the temple and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles. And who are Gentiles? You, me. If you are a non-Jew, regardless of if you're being saved or not, regardless of if you're being reconciled to God or not, if you are a non-Jew, you are a Gentile. So the Bible tells us that it has been given to the Gentiles. So there will be Gentiles around the outer court. So it's going to be a shared temple. But they will not be able to go inside. The Jews will still control the inner courts, but they won't control the outer courts. Let's look at another passage, and that is Thessalonians 2, verses 3 and 4. Okay? And it reads, let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Jesus is coming. There's going to be a second coming. Then so in order for the second coming to happen, because like he says, don't be deceived. Two things have to happen first before. This is talking about Jesus' second coming. Two things have to happen first. There has to be a falling away, and the man of sin has to be revealed. The man of sin has to be revealed. A falling away and the man of sin has to be revealed. The Antichrist will not be revealed. He is not revealed until he goes into the temple. He will go into the temple and he will present himself as God. That's when the 3.5 year tribulation period begins. There's a 7-year peace agreement. Halfway through the 7-year peace agreement, he walks into the temple, stops the sacrifices, and he claims to be God. He sits as God in the temple of God. Now, we understand that there is no temple for us to be worshiping Jesus. There are no sacrifices needed because Jesus came and the Jews missed him. They missed him. So they still believe that there still has to be sacrifices to be made. So they will continue. And so now with that being said, let's look at what the article says. The article says, one would have hoped that yesterday's unique convergence of Passover, Easter, and Ramadan would have led to a wonderful day of peace and brotherhood in the spiritual capital city of Jerusalem. Alas, any dream of religious harmony on a day holy to all three great Arabic faiths was shattered by Muslim rioters who turned the Temple Mount into a bloody battlefield, hurling stones at Jewish worshippers and Israeli vehicles. Palestinian terrorists have been fanning the flames of religious violence in recent weeks as Israelis have been preparing for the Passover holiday. Observed this week on Thursday evening, April 8th, a Palestinian terrorist attacked Tel Aviv's busy Dizengoff Square, where mainly secular Israeli young people were crowded at bars and cafes, tragically murdering 3 Jews in their 20s. Shortly after the deadly massacre, Hamas explained their motive and declared the continuing terrorism of the occupation and its crimes, attempts to Judaize Jerusalem and to perform sacrifices in the Al-Aqsa, to build its so-called temple during what they called Passover. Against it stands blood and bullets. So the Jews, or not the Jews, but the Muslims are very aware. The Muslims are very aware of the Jewish people wanting to build a third temple. The Temple Institute, it was established in 1987. So for the last 35 years, the Temple Institute that's their main focus. It's getting together everything they need to put things in place, the blueprint, and building this temple. And that's what they plan to do, and that's what they will do. Let's continue in the article. The article continues with, through their statement, Hamas exposed their greatest fear, that Israel will start to build the temple. For thousands of years, Jews have been praying for a return to the land of Israel. Over the last century, we have miraculously been restored to our homeland from the 4 corners of the earth, but are still awaiting the proper time to build the temple. Restored to their homeland. Restored to their homeland. Let's give some perspective to that. Let's look at Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. And it says, on the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants, I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river the river Euphrates. The fact that they are waiting to build the temple, it should speak volumes to you. God promised Abraham this land. This land has been returned to the Jews. The Jews have been returned from being scattered. That's prophecy in itself. And they are there and they are expecting to build their temple. Now let us continue with the article. Continue with the article, which says responsible Jewish, Christian, and Muslim leaders should use this recent wave of Islamic violence to immediately begin discussing practical and peaceful steps for the rebuilding of the temple on the Temple Mount. So, peace, practical and peaceful steps for the rebuilding of the Temple Mount. Let's look at Daniel 9:27. Daniel 9:27. And it reads, then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. So that tells us, the Bible has told us in the middle of the week. So for 1 week, for 7 years, there's going to be a peace agreement. In the middle of that week, he, the Antichrist, is going to bring an end to the sacrificing. So we know there's going to be a temple because you can't have sacrificing if there's no temple. That's the whole purpose of them building a temple, so that they can get back to sacrificing. There, he's going to stop it. And then the abomination of desolation will begin. Now let's look at the details offered here that's continued in this article. And it reads, it could be done without damaging or disrespecting the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque as part of a future peace plan between Israel and her Arab neighbors to end the plague of Islamic terror once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a temple, and the Jews are ready to build this temple. They are ready to build the temple. The Muslim community is not ready, but they will, or they do believe that their temple, they know and understand that the temple, the Jews want to build the temple. The temple will be built. The temple will be built. And the Bible tells us that. So I am going to follow the news as much as I can. And I am going to report the news as it pertains to Bible prophecy right here every week, if not more than once a week. Because as we continue to move forward and you begin to see what I see, what the Bible has shown us already, you will be engaged as well, because it's going to get exciting from here. It is going to get very exciting when these things begin to move forward. Okay? So I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with me, for being a part of this Bible study. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to click the bell for push notifications. And leave a comment or two. Let's engage about God's word. Let's engage. See you next time.